this time, I'd like to call the CPS Energy Board of Trustees meeting to be held on September 27th, 2021 at 1 p.m. Call it to order. At this time, Ms. Ramirez, would you please confirm the quorum?
Yes, sir. We have Trustee Steen, Vice Chair Gonzalez, Trustee Kelly, and yourself. We have a quorum present, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Ramirez. At this time, for our safety message, invocation, and pledge allegiance, Ms. Julia Haynes.
Good afternoon. We first wanted to review the evacuation procedures so that we are prepared to be safe in the event of an emergency. If you hear the fire alarm, follow the instructions in the announcement delivered through the PA system. If asked to evacuate, use the glass door exiting out of the boardroom outside. If that door is blocked, use the door at the rear of the room. Verbally alert others in the room of the fire and evacuate. Then move to the main parking lot in front of headquarters or the AT&T parking lot over the McCullough-Brooklyn bridges, whichever route is safer, and await further instructions. In the event of a situation like this, our security team will be monitoring the situation and will notify the appropriate emergency services and team members. We also have employees nearby who are trained to administer first aid if needed. Safety is a top priority at CPS Energy, and while we hope this information is never needed, we want to be sure we are always ready. Will you please stand with me for the invocation? We are thankful for this day that you have given us, for its blessings, its opportunities, its challenges. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing important responsibilities. We ask that you would guide our thoughts and our actions so that we may have a successful meeting of the CPS Energy Board of Trustees. Help us to accomplish our goals while displaying your character. Help us to do good, to be honest, to serve others, and to fulfill our obligations to our community. We pray for these things in your name. Amen. Now please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Good afternoon. The next agenda item is public comment, which provides an opportunity for members of the public to share thoughts on any of this meeting's posted agenda items. Here's how the process will work. We will invite pre-registered speakers to speak in the order in which they registered, with in-person commenters speaking first, followed by virtual commenters. They may only address the board on CPS Energy related business listed on the posted agenda for this meeting. Speakers should state their first and last name, what organization or group they represent if applicable, and indicate the agenda item number they're going to speak about. For this meeting, we have 11 registered speakers who will speak in person, and we have 5 registered speakers who will speak virtually. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to speak. Thomas, can we cue the timer, please? Our first in-person speaker is Jamie Martinez, followed by Lillian White.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to be here today. My name is Jaime Martinez, and I work for the University of Texas at San Antonio Small Business Development Center. Our organization is not new to providing one-on-one confidential business assistance and resources to San Antonio, Bexar County. We also cover the 10 surrounding counties of Bexar. We are fortunate to also provide assistance to other small businesses in 9 other cities besides San Antonio. So we have a pretty big footprint of 79 counties that we assist. I'm coming here today to discuss the very productive collaboration that I've had with your program of the Energy to Business program here at CPS Energy. Over the past few months, I've had the honor of working with Julia Martinez and her team to have outreach to the small business community. Again, as I mentioned, although we have been around for 40 years and we've been a great assistance providing relief, recovery, helping businesses become resilient, reboot their businesses, especially in this COVID pandemic, we can't do it alone. So unfortunately, we are a very well-kept secret. And so that's why that I'm here to discuss. It's been a great and productive collaborative effort with Julia and the Energy to Business program. They have an in-person team to provide hands-on assistance, very much like us in the SBDC program here at UTSA. Providing that one-on-one assistance that, where do they get the resources that they have no idea about? Well, they come to you all at Energy to Business. They come to us to find the capital assistance that they need to continue to keep their business, going and keep those employees employed. Well, they come to you all to find out what incentives and what resources and how they should be actually, hooking up their equipment here at, with CPS Energy and providing them the assistance, the guidance that you all can provide in this particular program. So that's what I came here to discuss. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it, and you all have a good rest of your day. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Our next in-person speaker is Lillian White, followed by Caleb Blevins.
Howdy, y'all. My name is Lillian White, and I am a teacher and the hub coordinator for Sunrise Movement of San Antonio. I'm here to tell you that resuming utility disconnections during a pandemic is inhumane. Many of our communities struggle daily in their attempts to recover from the socioeconomic repercussions of COVID-19. No one should be forced to withhold basic needs from their family in order to pay off debt accrued due to a loss of income during a pandemic. By resuming disconnections, you are forcing an estimated 72,000 households to make that decision. Unfortunately, this number will only increase with the proposed unethical rate hikes. As utility bills rise and lower income residents are forced to subsidize the energy costs of heavy using businesses, more households will struggle with utility debt and thus face disconnections. Considering the suffering and loss of life after last February's winter storm, these disconnections will have undoubtedly deadly results. The Spruce coal plant failed us during Storm Uri. It is unreliable and dangerous. It is the leading source of asthma exacerbating pollution in Bexar County, and I see the harm this causes in my students every single day. About 80% of the population in the residential areas surrounding the Spruce coal plant are people of color, and at least 23% are living in poverty. Last August, the city of San Antonio declared racism as a public health crisis, yet there are no plans to address this major contributor to health issues of BIPOC community members. This is why we need people like Dr. Adelita Cantu on the CPS Energy Board of Trustees. As an educator and a health professional, Dr. Cantu understands the true meaning of public service and will lend an invaluable perspective to the decisions being made at CPS Energy, especially in the face of our changing climate. As CPS Energy is municipally owned, we deserve a board of trustees that actually consider our needs. Appointing Dr. Cantu is a great place to start. Thank you.
Chair Mackey, I just wanted to note that the mayor has arrived, so all trustees are present.
Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Our next in-person speaker is Caleb Blevins, followed by Laura Richards. I'll call for Caleb Blevins one more time. All right, our next registered speaker is Laura Richards.
Good afternoon. My name is Laura Richards, and I am here from SAMA, San Antonio Museum of Art, and I will be ceding my time to Cecilia Herrera. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Our next speaker is Brian Sparks. Adrian, I believe Mr. Sparks is on virtually.
Hey there, this is Brian Sparks. I'm ceding my 2 minutes to Cecilia Herrera.
Thank you so
Hi,
much.
Brian.
Our next registered speaker is Cecilia Herrera. Receiving seated time from Laura Richards and Brian Sparks, she will have a total of 6 minutes to speak.
Good afternoon, dear members of the board. As you know, I'm Cecilia Elizondo Herrera, a native of San Antonio, and I'm a retired Foreign Service officer with the U.S. Department of State. I'm in the middle of my second term on the board of the San Antonio Museum of Art and privileged to serve during this year's 40th anniversary. Today, our collection has grown to 30,000 outstanding works of art spanning 6,000 years of human creativity. Our need for additional space is great. We have several complete collections that are not on view due to the lack of adequate space. With the use of your CPS Energy property that we've been in discussions with, we could utilize over 11,000 square feet in our main building for the display of art currently stored. We've completed a master plan for space utilization that would utilize the CPS space for staff offices, a library, a conservation studio, and event space. Any contribution of space would not go unutilized. I have come before you today to request that you consider meeting with our representatives again to continue discussions that would together help us continue serving the city of San Antonio. For some time, we've been counting on your generosity to help us expand our physical space. I believe our strongest reason for requesting this space is the impact we have on the community. The museum offers free general admission to all Bexar County residents on Tuesdays after school is out, and also on Sunday mornings. We reached this year 2,500 students in Title I schools, coordinating with educators to design programs appropriate for pre-K through 6th grade. At a time in our history when it's so important to understand not only our culture, but the cultures of others, our children will benefit greatly by being a part of the museum's programs. The history and art they will study will expand them and their ideas, and we have the treasures here in San Antonio to help them. As SAMA coordinates with START and STEAM education for in-school programs, students can hardly wait to come and give tours to their parents. They act as their guides. SAMA is one of 3 museums in Texas with an encyclopedic collection. Even COVID-19 did not hold us back. The museum quickly pivoted to assist educators by providing virtual programming tours, lectures for teachers and students. Teachers as far away as Brooklyn and New Orleans picked up our programming as well. We developed 30 lesson plans to support parents who found themselves homeschooling and teachers working remotely. Our commitment to the children of San Antonio is as great as yours. Brian Sparks, the principal you just heard from Lamar Elementary, is a testimony to the importance of the museum for his school-age children. All students in pre-K through 6th grade have taken part in experiences at the museum so that when they leave the school, they visited the museum at least 8 times, having a willing and extremely capable partner in our SAMA staff. Coupled with the rich collections, the students have developed their powers of analytical and critical thinking throughout their time at the school. And you just heard from Laura Richards Gonzalez, a mother and member of SAMA, who is also here with us today. And her testimony is, I love coming to SAMA for all of the educational opportunities it offers my son. The fact that we have a world-class museum right here in San Antonio is amazing. My mother was a seventh-generation Texan, and my father, John, was raised at St. Peter's St. Joseph Orphanage here in San Antonio by the Sisters of Charity of the Incarnate Word. My father spent 32 years working at Kelly Air Force Base, and my mother taught dancing until she married. If it had not been for their influence and the community outreach by nonprofit organizations like SAMA of art and music to primary schools, I perhaps would not have even had a desire to join the Foreign Service and explore the world. I was stationed at the U.S. Embassy in Rome, Italy, with responsibility for your $60 million art collection, which was discovered during World War II beneath the embassy. While stationed in Baghdad, it was inspiring to see the indomitable human spirit of local artists after the war producing their works of art. I only hope more children in San Antonio can discover the beauty of SAMA and can discover the beauty within themselves. With your help, they can. Many thanks for considering to continue the discussion with SAMA representatives on the ultimate use of your property. Thank you again.
Thank you for your input. Our next in-person speaker is Joe Linson, followed by John Coleman.
Good morning. I'm Joe Linson. I'm a resident of District 7, City of San Antonio, and just an ordinary citizen here. First thing I want to do is thank the utility company. You guys are one of the best in the nation. I've lived in several cities in town, and utility is important. So I want to give a nod out to your CEO, Paula Gold Williams. Thanks for the work you do in your team. And then also Chairman Mackey and this board. I know a number of you. I haven't seen Janie Gonzalez, John Steen, Ed. I go way back with all of y'all. Thanks for the work you do. I'm here to speak for SAMA. I want to be sure that you understand that art is a connector. They did a mural at Tony G's Soul Food about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Got young people involved, senior citizens involved. It brought the community together. They talked about the history of the East Side, Dizzy Gillespie, Miles Davis, Etta James, and it just connected everybody. People are doing selfies out there now, videos, and just making things happen. And it's an economic generator too, because folks do all that, and then they come in and they get the grits and gravy, the chicken and waffles and all of that. That's a good thing. What I want you to do with SAMA is don't make a decision today, continue the dialogue. In 2015, you came close to solving that, didn't get there. I realize things have changed from 2015 to 2021, that's valuable property, but they need additional space for exhibit space, office space, et cetera. I'm just urging you to continue to work with them on this project. That's a significant parcel of land. I know all that, but I think working together, you all, the city, SAMA, we're all in this together. I appreciate you letting me come down here. What a fabulous facility this is. All of you guys are just amazing. Thank you so much for hearing me today.
Thank you for your input. Our next speaker is John Coleman, followed by Ed Hart.
Good afternoon. My name is John Coleman, and I'm an artist here on the east side of town. And it is a great pleasure for me to come before this board and talk about one lady that we all here in San Antonio know, Ms. Lila Crocker. I am so pleased to say I've met Mrs. Crocker at a reception at Dr. Herman and Harry Kelly's house. When they had an exception, it was an exhibition of Jacob Lawrence. So I was part of that reception and that I met Mrs. Cockrell. You know, I know she's done a whole lot for San Antonio, but one thing that I loved about her, she loved the art that a lot of people may not have known it at that time. Her first painting that she purchased from me was Jazz Alive, Jazz Plus 2. I think that the board might have had a little painting of it. They were gonna give you I don't know whether there was a picture of the painting that's in the museum. So she was a person that was interested in supporting the arts on the east side of town. Her first exhibit was at the Port of Authority in San Antonio. She was very happy about that. Now, another what she did, she supported the Ethnic Art Society, where she purchased a lot of her artwork from. One thing I really loved about her, she gave a lot of her paintings to the St. Philip College. I don't know if you get a chance to go and see them. She got a lot of paintings, and they really dedicated a gallery to her. One of her good paintings that she would really love to see was a playground in the park, because I think she was at one time she was the member of the Park Association. Thank you very much. And she was a great lady, and she loved the art. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Our next speaker is Ed Hart, followed by Didi Balmares.
Excuse me, adjust the microphone. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ed Hart, and I'm the current board chairman of the San Antonio Museum of Art. And thank you very much for the opportunity to speak this afternoon. The San Antonio Museum of Art turns 40 this year, and I think we've shared some documents with you that go into detail of that history. And as the city's museum, we are very proud of the educational role that we have played and continue to play. Not everyone can travel the world to study different cultures, history, and civilization, and our goal at SAMA has always been to bring the world to San Antonio so that citizens can learn right here at home. To further that goal, 6 years ago, CPS and SAMA, by way of two great leaders, Doyle Beneby and Lila Cockrell, engaged in a conveyance agreement that, once completed, would have provided SAMA a meaningful addition to our current campus. We spent a good deal of time and resources designing a master plan for that campus with the intent to activate gallery space that was being used for office and storage, thus allowing us to share more of our broad collection, have more community events, and enhance the overall mission of engaging and educating all ages and backgrounds of the San Antonio community. As time has passed, our various needs for gallery space, storage, and educational facilities has only grown more acute. Both of our organizations are critical to this great city. CPS provides the engine upon which the city runs, and SAMA keeps the city interesting and attractive to current citizens and newcomers alike. We help children gain a worldview that opens their minds with both our core collection, but also with world-class exhibitions. We have always had a good working and, frankly, a good neighborly relationship with CPS. Over the last 6 years, CPS has helped us with occasional event parking and some limited storage, and in turn, SAMA has accommodated CPS as they have navigated environmental and administrative matters. The collegial relationship continues, and we look forward to continuing a conversation on this topic of conveyance that achieves a mutual beneficial outcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your input. Our next speaker is Didi Balmares, followed by Dr. Meredith McGuire.
Good afternoon. Didi Balmares, public citizen. I believe Dr. Adelita Cantu should be nominated to the Board of Trustees. She has the experience in strategic and financial planning as a board member of other organizations and can offer meaningful policy guidance to CPS Energy management. This board is and has historically been represented by the business community. what this utility and especially ratepayers need at this critical time as CPS Energy gets ready to shut off power to thousands of households, raise rates, and continues to burn coal, is a health professional and community advocate that understands the decisions the utility makes has far-reaching impacts. Dr. Cantu has experience and perspective that no one here has. She works with the most vulnerable in our community. She is an educator at the UT Health Science Center. She understands that CPS Energy's continued reliance on coal is contributing to the climate crisis, polluting the air we breathe, and has negative health impacts on our neighbors. Who else on this board considers this? These are only a few of Dr. Cantu's qualifications. A couple of months ago, she and I were in a meeting with Councilwoman Sandoval and other members of her district. And with her, Dr. Cantu had COVID-19 vaccines because after our meeting, she was going to volunteer at a vaccination clinic. She is tireless in her advocacy and outreach to the community. I've had the privilege of working with Dr. Cantu in various spaces, and as a CPS Energy customer, I would appreciate the two-person nominating committee would consider something other than the business as usual approach in the decision-making process and appoint her to fill the vacancy. I'd also like to speak to agenda number 5. Recently, the environmental stakeholders received an email from Rudy Garza asking if we would meet with him and others in CPS Energy to discuss the flexible resource plan. I responded to him on behalf of the environmental stakeholders, a proposal requesting engagement to discuss the future of the Spruce Coal Plant and the flexible resource plan. I sent y'all a copy of that. I'm sure some of y'all have seen it. I've also sent it to the chair and co-chair of the Rate Advisory Committee. Haven't heard from him. Haven't received a response from him, and that's been over a week. But I do want to say that on behalf of the environmental stakeholders, we looked at this as an opportunity for robust community engagement on moving San Antonio to a clean, sustainable future. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you for your input. Our next speaker is Dr. Meredith McGuire, followed by Valerie Morales.
Hello, I am Dr. Meredith McGuire, Trinity University Professor Emerita and Conservation Co-Chair of the local Sierra Club. Building on my previous comments to this board last spring, I urge you to halt consideration of rate hikes until the rate structure itself is made completely fair to residential ratepayers. CPS must adopt rate structures that create incentives for all classes heaviest users to change their practices and processes. The rate structure for industrial classes, for instance, needs effective price signals that incentivize installation of high-efficiency equipment and production processes. The rate structure for all classes should incentivize demand management that, especially to reduce peak demand coincident with the bulk system peak. That alone has the potential to reduce or to end, That alone has potential to reduce or end the need for building expensive new capacity production. The rate structure for all classes should encourage, not discourage, businesses and residents to co-invest with CPS in battery storage, on-site solar, and other distributed energy resources for our local microgrid to provide greater reliability, preparedness for future extreme weather crises, and energy savings by using energy produced using energy that it's produced close to where it is used. CPS must promote more, not less, weatherization and other energy efficiency improvements in low-income neighborhoods. CPS must phase out the dirtiest power plants as quickly as possible because we have everything to lose if climate change makes San Antonio unlivable. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Our next speaker is Valerie Morales.
Good afternoon. My name is Valerie Morales. I'm a community organizer and I'm currently with the Climate Colectiva. I've been organizing in San Antonio for about 20 years of my life. And I'm here on behalf of the residents that are most affected by the policies that you all are about to vote on, as well as have recently voted on, which are the rate increases as well as the disconnections that have already been approved. So I want to put a face to the people that are not able to make it today because they're working full time, believe it or not. A majority of the people are working full time, unable to come to these meetings and let you know what's happening in their lives and why they cannot pay their bills. I have been hearing about difficulty paying bills since I first started. People saying that, you know, they couldn't afford their bills, so they're going back and forth between their vehicles to warm up during the winter or to cool off in the summer. More recently, the number has increased. The amount of people that are unable to pay their bills, the people that do not have access to the assistance that's provided, whether it's because of computer illiteracy, lack of online capabilities, they have no internet, they have no money to pay for internet. It's really concerning, especially because I had a neighbor not too long ago pass away from not having electricity. She had a medical emergency. Her power apparently had been off, and she died a couple of days later. We were in the middle of a heat stroke. So for me, this is a matter of life or death. Not having energy is a death sentence for a lot of our most vulnerable populations. We're looking at people that are over 70 years old that cannot apply for assistance online. They have mobility issues and they cannot make it to these sites where they're offering help. And even then, when they go, they're being turned away. They're being given a piece of paper that says, here, call this number. Here, go online and do this. I mean, they do not have the accessibility that we perceive them to have. So I just wanted to make you all aware and make sure that I cleared my conscience. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. We will now transition to our virtual speakers. Adrian, can you introduce our first virtual speaker?
Hi, Loretta. Yes, thank you. Our first speaker is Terry Burns, followed by Isabella Nieto. Terry Burns, you'll be unmuted now, and you have 2 minutes to speak.
Thank you. I hope you can all hear me. I'd like to support the nomination of Dr. Cantu to join this board. She has skills that you've sorely lacked over the years. She's a doctor of nursing and has an extensive record in public health and in our community. And as you know, your coal plants contribute greatly to public health problems in our city. And we are going into moderate non-attainment for air quality. Dr. Cantu is very familiar with these issues and the health impacts of them and the things that you need to do to shut these coal plants down to improve our health locally. And she's also very familiar with climate change, and she's been very active in the community on these different issues. She has plenty of administrative and budgetary experience to meet your business predominated interests, but she also brings skills that you sorely lack. And as far as business, clearly being $1 billion in debt doesn't indicate that your current management or your departing executive have very good business skills. We're in a crisis of your doing, not ours, the citizens. And you need new thinking and new management on the board and at the staff of the organization. You've had a complete turnover of high-level people before and after the storm. And complaints are in the media of toxic work environment, etc. There needs to be some house cleaning, and Dr. Cantu will bring the ethics and knowledge and experience to help you get this done. And I appreciate the new board members that are trying to move you forward. And
Thank you for your input. Our next virtual speaker is Isabella Nieto, followed by Lexi Garcia. Isabella, you'll be unmuted now, and you have 2 minutes to speak.
Howdy, everyone. My name is Bella Nieto. I'm an organizer with Texas Rising, and I'm a student at UTSA. I'm here to place my full advocacy for Dr. Cantu to be appointed to the board. Like other speakers said before me, she's extremely well qualified, and I think as a business that covers all of San Antonio, we should be listening to the public about these things, and we should be making smart business decisions. And I think it's in everyone's best interest that she be appointed. I am also here to speak against rate hikes, especially since people are still recovering from the winter storm in February. And I think that to increase rate hikes and to take away power and utilities is just the worst form of dehumanization, and it completely discounts people's experiences during those times. And I think to do that to some of the most vulnerable communities would just be such a poor representation of who the city is and what we strive to do. So I just really hope that you take that into consideration today. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Our final virtual speaker is Lexi Garcia. Lexi Garcia, you'll be unmuted now, and you have 2 minutes to speak.
Cool. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Lexi Garcia. I'm an organizer with Texas Rising, a statewide organization building power of young people at the ballot box and in our communities. And we're an org who has stood in coalition with Recall CPS Energy, Climate Action San Antonio, and every other regular ratepayer who couldn't be here today. We all deserve an easier, more accessible way to engage in meaningful input to the utility that we own. And since I've last spoken at the board, none of the demands that we've collectively brought forward have been met, and we're still being used through our payments to subsidize the rates of the city's biggest polluters. All the while, our families, neighbors, and the working poor in San Antonio are faced with the threat of disconnections for non-payment and a rate increase. Tens of thousands of families face disconnection, many of whom have already faced the worst impacts of COVID-19, the winter storm, and an economy that functions on exploiting us. I'm one of the many who know that it's time that our utility provided something other than polluted air and empty promises. And luckily, there's a real chance to move this board in the right direction by approving Dr. Adelita Cantu to the board, someone who has a real understanding of the chronic health impacts the spruce coal plant has on people of San Antonio. Heat and light are human rights, and we demand that there are no rate increases and yes to Dr. Cantu, because not a single one of us should bear the financial or human costs of CPS Energy's failure to listen to the community. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. That was our last virtual speaker of the day. I would like to note that we did have another registered speaker, Jay Higgins, but he did not join this meeting. So I will now turn back the meeting to Chair Dr. Mackey. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we have agenda item 4, the CEO's report.
Okay, thank you so much. I've got some broad topics that I'm going to give an update on, and I'm going to cover some highlights for the agenda items you'll cover today. We continue to focus on our generating plants, and our team is doing the work associated with the maintenance and requirements and repairs associated with all our plants. And it's very important to do as we enter a period where we typically do a lot of maintenance. Our high impact months are from the months of June to September. So we're coming off of the peak summer demand period, and now we all know that Texas has both a intense summer and the capability of having a very intense winter. One of the items that was an issue during Storm Uri related to the number of plants in the system across Texas that were down for maintenance. Historically, since the industry has not had a winter peaking period that has been very substantial, you'll typically find generators use the entire period from the October timeframe to May to do the maintenance. We've always coordinated our outages, particularly our planned outages, to tell ERCOT ahead of time what we plan to do. We did have one plant out for planned maintenance during Storm Uri. If you exclude that one plant from our calculation, about 85% of the capacity that we manage and own for the benefit of our community was operational. That said, there was a lot of conversations about plants needing maintenance and being down during that period. And even part of the Texas legislative agenda was to look at that and look for the time frame when we think most likely there will be a winter peak, and look to see if there could be an exclusion of trying to do planned maintenance during that time. We have embraced that suggestion, and we've discussed it with you, our board members, before, that we will be shooting for that. I wanted to give an update that Frank Almaraz and his team, led by Benny Etheridge, and many of the people at our power generating plants have been taking this to heart. And so we have come up with a plan to make sure that we have no planned maintenance occurring on our plants in the January and February timeframe. And we wanted to provide an update that we've made that commitment and had that planning continue. Frank Almaraz, who is our Chief Power Sustainability and Business Development Officer, will be given a follow-up reporting to the board, as well as an update on other measures that we're taking with our power plants. In general, though, I would say, while it's manageable, there are some additional implications to being able to do this. It does require us to spend more overtime in trying to make sure that we get the maintenance done over a shorter period of time. It also requires us to think about buying power capacity to cover us during those timeframes when the plants are down for a shorter but intense period of time. We figured that out and figured out how to do that with our current resources. But the older that the plants get every single year, we're going to have to work really hard and think about that extra cost of making sure that the assets are available and functioning for the city of San Antonio and the state during a potential winter peak. Going to the second page, I just wanted to provide an update that this month we're meeting. Our team is meeting and going to the Municipal Utilities Committee and providing an update on that issue and many of the other action items that the CEP, the Committee of Emergency Preparedness, gave us to work on. That committee is chaired by Councilperson John Courage from District 9, and our team is ready to provide that update. It would typically, just for board information and public, that committee, the MUC, meets typically the last Tuesday of every month. It has been moved, that session has been moved to Wednesday. And that is because the city of San Antonio SAWS and CPS Energy is doing a major desktop exercise that the city is facilitating, so that, again, we can work on our communication process, overall approach to addressing the significant issues. So We are appreciative of the MUC's willingness to accommodate our schedule change. And again, we'll be primarily for most of the day at that exercise tomorrow, and then the team will be providing an update to the MUC on the following day. I do want to highlight another item, supply chain challenges. I think we've been talking to the board a bit about the supply chain challenges. What we have seen up to last week was real challenges in getting certain equipment and materials that we need to operate the system. We did have and do have an issue with transformers. This is an industry issue, not subject solely to CPS Energy. We need transformers both to help accommodate economic development. When a new subdivision is being built, they need transformers put into their neighborhoods as well as business development. And there are challenges nationwide to get those transformers. We also need them if a transformer is to fail. We have done some proactive work around trying to predict and prevent failures of transformers and get in front of those things. And you'll hear a bit of that in one of the procurement items that we have today. So we're doing some proactive things that have long-term been in our portfolio. And other than that, we continue to work with our community to make them aware. We did a press release to make sure that people know. We've notified the public. We're keeping them updated. And we're just going to continue to try to get as many transformers as we can. Next item is a Flexpart Bundle. We've been listening a lot to board feedback and interest, particularly around how are we going to solve the energy challenges that we have? How do we really continue to work on utility scale projects? Those are projects that are huge, and usually they have a better affordability outcome. They're usually cheaper because they're bigger projects. But we also understand that there's a lot of benefit from distributed generation, and we need to be balanced. So we've heard of the board's different commentary about that, about procurement, about local and diverse. And what we are looking at now is the ability to potentially have the same target at 900 megawatts, but try to carve out about 50 megawatts at this time to help us with some distributed solar. And we have a very successful distributed solar campaign that's running in our Sept program. But we do think, since we were already committed to solar, there's a way to carve out and actually put some of that distributed generation in the Flexpart Bundle. And so we will continue again to give you updates as we go forward. We think there's significant benefits, and we are not changing our goal of 900 megawatts for solar. We're just looking at different ways to get to the same goal, and we'll give you more information as that gets developed. We continue to provide updates and engagement with the community on the Flexpart Bundle. We did have a town hall on August 12th and another one on September 14th. We're going to continue to get as much feedback as we can, and also provide information about the significance of having the ability to start replacing some of our older baseload fossil type generation. I did want to highlight, there's just a sample of the surveys. We continue to survey as much as we can, what continues to be important to our community. Hard to see, but if you look at those pies, generally you look at the maroonish color, that is reliability. And if you look at the blue color, that's affordability. So those two continue to be the primary prioritizations that we're getting every time we survey our customers. Next page, I'm on page 4. So now I'm going to jump to just giving a couple of highlights of what you'll hear today on the agenda. Items 5A and 5B are about what we're in now. We're calling it the pre-rate increase consideration period. We are not declaring a rate increase today, but we do understand that people have questions and are interested, and we just want to make sure we are talking to them about the drivers of where we sit from a financial standpoint today, and then our commitments to continue to help our community through this transition of the pandemic that continues. So we're stepping up and having more communication to the public. We provided a media update about today's presentation. We did that shortly before this board meeting, and it allowed us to answer, again, a lot of questions about where we are. So we're going to continue to talk to our community, talk to them and give them as much information as we can, share with them why are we here after almost 8 years of not having a rate increase. And we just want to make sure that they have that information and we can get their preliminary feedback. On to page 5. So, I do want to highlight again, some people say, you probably said it too much. I think you can't say it enough. We've only had one rate increase in 12 years, and the last one was 8 years ago. That's not a justification to do a rate increase. We understand that. But we do believe that every year we've tried very hard not to have one and not to have a gap and find ways to solve that problem. But it ultimately gets to be a very difficult thing. We don't know many offerings in commercially where there's been no increase for 8 years. We understand that we will never ask our community for one more dollar than we need, but we are seeing increased financial pressure, not just because of the Storm Uri or the issues with pandemic, but just in general, it is hard to do that and increase our ability to reinvest in our infrastructure, keep our equipment maintained, and keep our employees well-trained and able to continue to do the right thing, which is focus on servicing our community. I do want to continue to highlight, again, we take it seriously that we have to materially save money, and we've saved over $900 million since 2010. We do think that the rate increase is currently estimated at about 10%, but even in these days, every single day that we work on fine-tuning the number that we may potentially ask for, our goal is to see, again, if we can get that number to be lower than the 10%. But we also believe we've seen some implications that would push that number, and we just want to make sure that we tell people it's a possibility that we're trying to press down. But we also think it's an easy way for people to understand the potential impact of 10%. On an average $100 bill, that is a $10 increase. And again, summers are higher typically, and now sometimes in the winter. But if you average your payments for a year and it's about $100, that's about a $10 impact. And if your average is about $150 over the year, then per month, then that's about a $15 impact. I did talk, I'm moving on to item 6. You will again hear about our transformer, our proactive equipment replacements. Again, what we did is several years ago, we studied the fact that when you have a transformer that goes down in the system, it's a huge issue because your customers automatically don't have power, and then it's a major repair of the system. It also costs you quite a bit of more money. We think per replacement, to have an emergency because of how quickly you have to work and how difficult it is. It's a premium to replace that unit of over $300,000 per each one. We've been on a program that we implemented in 2009, and we've seen a reduction of 68% in failures because of unplanned failures, because now we're doing a better job of getting in front of those unplanned failures and doing a earlier replacement of transformers in the field. Now, this is complicated by the fact that there are fewer transformers, but we do have a program that gives us long-term benefits. And to date, we have avoided about almost $6 million in hard costs that we would have spent if we hadn't been proactive. Getting towards the end here, you will see a procurement that's going to have a preview of item 7, and then an actual consent item 9C1, and that is underground infrastructure and installation. And there was a RFP process there, and we focused on really working on subcontracting, and we saw some new vendors that are coming into our portfolio for us to work with through general contractors. Also on the consent agenda 9B, we do have a new rate advisory member that is being proposed by Councilwoman Villegran Villagrán for District 3, Brenda Pacheco, and she's coming for you to be ratified. Brenda has been monitoring the RAC meetings. This is for the RAC. She's been monitoring the RAC meetings and is ready to go, subject to the board's approval. We will talk about Jones Avenue property. We have been trying for some time to figure out how we could potentially share some property or transfer some property to SAMA, the museum, which is a great asset to our community. I would say the challenge that we have now is we had resolved many of the issues, and we had an expiration date of 2019, December 31st, 2019, to resolve that transfer. For me, I'm going to need board approval to take the next step associated with that property, either to re-enter back into that agreement or potentially sell the entire property and use that in part to help customers. That's what we think one of the best uses a part of those proceeds could be. Those are huge benefits in both directions. But we definitely need to discuss this with the board and let the board deliberate on what's the best path forward. I would say, just in closing on that item, 2015, we were in a different place, and now here we are in 2021 with many other financial issues. So for us, we do think the dialogue about by the board about what we should do under the current considerations is very, very important for us to support your conversation today. Last major item is item 12, the Citizens Advisory Committee, member District 9. Again, I believe Council Encourage's district has a new nominee, Mr. Tom Corser, and that will be a separate agenda item presented to you. And that is the end of my report, and I'll take any questions you have.
Have any questions, comments for our CEO, Mr. Steen?
Ms. Gall-Williams, I watched a video of you and Robert Puente on a panel for the North San Antonio Chamber of Commerce. And do I have my? Is that? And it was called the State of Utilities.
Yes, sir.
Oh, sure. And one of the things that Mr. Puente talked about that they're doing at SAWS, he said that they've made a list of all the action items that grew out of the winter storm. And of course, they had really two things going on. They had the report of the Committee on Emergency Preparedness, but they also, independently of that, had Black and Veatch do a report. And he said that at every board meeting, they have, and Mayor, maybe you can help me with this because you go to those SAWS meetings, but they're saying that, Robert Puente was saying that at every SAWS board meeting, they put it up, what are those action items and what progress are being made toward completing each of those action items. And I was wondering why we wouldn't do something similar as a way for this board to keep up with the progress that we're making. And I know things are being done, but to keep up with the progress in terms of satisfying those recommendations from the Committee on Emergency Preparedness.
A couple of things. Thank you for that question. We have done a tally of a good portion of the action items, but we are working on a consolidation. So if you look at what we utilized to a great deal was the CEP, the committee that the mayor had stood up for us to look at the issues, not just by us, but comprehensively with the city of San Antonio and with SAWS. So we've done a dashboard of that, but we're going to consolidate that and expand that to some of the additional actions. Since that, one thing I have done is made sure that every time I provide an update, I'm giving you all real context, not just the line items, but the context of the substance that we're doing. So, for example, today, talking about how we're addressing the action item of looking at a shorter period to do maintenance. But the master list, I think I would tell you we probably have another month, and we'll have a master list for you.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. Be helpful to us, but I think it also showed the public that we're serious about getting these action items completed, and that's a way of bringing that to the fore.
I totally agree with Mr. Steen on this. I read this CEP recommendation status update, Municipal Utility Committee report, September 2021. If you read the report, it says that we are implementing a 9-point weatherization improvement plan preparedness for the 2021 winter season by December the 21st. That's in that report in that CEP or CPS 4. And it says we are evaluating upgrading of aging burner systems, upgrading fan controls, and spruce fan control systems upgrade in progress and will be completed by December 2021. That we have developed unit outage plans that will maximize CPS unit availability during December through February. It says detailed inspections of all outside piping to ensure plant freeze protection to configure it as designed and will upgrade as necessary for December 2021. We expect to finalize and submit this plan by December 15th of the 20 year. We still on that deadline?
Yes, sir.
December, that right there. And that's one thing that I totally agree with Mr. Steen on. And for what you have right now, I'd appreciate if you could get something out to us, to this board, on the progress that we're making on that, and that we'll receive the final one, like you said, on December the 15th. If you could get that out to us, well, you know, what happened as far as December and February and that plan, if we could get something in writing from you all on that, the progress that we're making. First of all, what happened, why it happened, and what we're doing about it. So that should be all outlined in that plan, and I appreciate it if we could get that progress report now, up to date now, and then by December the 15th, if we could get that, because it's identified in this plan right here, if we could do that right there. And if you would include, I know Mr. Mr. Steen mentioned Beach and Black. I know Mr. Bonnewell talked about you had hired, you know, Beach and Black to do a study for us or something. So could you explain that, Mr. Bonnewell?
So Black and Beach has been hired and secured to assist us with consultation around load shed.
Okay.
Specifically.
Explain load shed.
Well, it's the process of, we're activated by ERCOT to take certain circuits off in a certain order, and it's ensuring that that process is effective, that it provides the assurance to the public that we're going to rotate those in a certain manner for the safety of our public.
Yes.
So we are using Black and Beach with their expertise where they have assisted other utilities in the country on this particular matter.
Okay, thank you. When can we get this update report for where we're at now, before the December 15th? When are you going to be able to share this with us?
We'll make sure we have it by or before the next board meeting.
Okay, wait a minute. No, not before the next board meeting. Next board meeting is in November. We need something by mid-November. Where are we at before the December 15th board meeting?
We'll have it before the October. We'll have it in October.
Okay, before the October. Okay, can we get it a little sooner, by October 15th?
We will work on trying to get it as soon as we can before that.
Okay, we appreciate that right there. Any other board members with any concerns?
Dr. Mackey, thank you for those comments. And I think it's one thing for us as a board to get that information, but I think that the public, the people that keep up with what we're doing, they'd like to know that we're staying on top of this. And I think the spirit of what Robert Puente was saying is that we're gonna bring this up. I think this is what he was saying, at every single meeting, and we're gonna whittle away at these things. And at some point, we're gonna say we've completed them all. But until we do that, it's gonna be an item on every agenda at every meeting to show our public or show our community that we're on top of this and that we're working our way through all these recommendations.
Understood.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any concerns? Oh, Mayor?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation, Paula. Just other items are going to be covered in the rest of the agenda. I had a question on the town hall, the polls that were done, the town halls that were done on the Flexpart Bundle.
Yes, sir.
What was the audience, what was the response like in terms of the respondents that came, that called in? Do we have numbers and kind of representation on districts, things like that?
We do. I want to say that we had a couple of thousand people that dialed in at one time or another, but we can get that, the statistics and get that available and also
That
share.
would be very helpful, yeah.
To build upon that, that's exactly what
Chair.
I was going to ask for. If we could have a breakdown by zip codes. You know, you've had 2 polls. How did they answer by zip code, by priority? Like, it would just be nice to know. We obviously know it's 3, the top 3 priorities may shift a little bit, but it would be nice to know by zip codes.
We will try to get that.
By council district, whichever is easier, because I know there's more than one zip code within council districts.
Okay, and just to expand on that, what we talked about earlier with Mr. Steen, can we put some numbers by that, how much we spent up to this point? Because I looked at some of the things with the frozen pipes and all the things that transpired. How much money we spent to get to that point, to alleviate that problem from happening again? If you could give us some numbers up to that point of what we spent on that, I sure would appreciate that.
Will do.
And do we have any other questions, comments, concerns?
And this is for Paula. Paula, on the MUC committee, will you also just be providing us an update as decisions are made or being considered?
We will gladly do that.
Okay, thank you.
And Mayor, I would appreciate it. I would like to, at some time or another, I would like to visit with your CFO, with Corey and Shannon. And I know Miss CEO, Paula Williams, talked about the rate case a little bit. Could you mind if I could get 2 hours of your CFO with myself and Shannon Albert and Corey? And if any other board member would like to join, I would like to hear and kind of go over these numbers and stuff. So it would really help me if I could sit down with both entities.
I know Corey and Paula have been meeting with Ben and Eric. That's part of our normal process, so we'd expect that. And in fact, I was going to bring that up during the agenda item, but we need to make sure that both teams, the regulator and the utility, are coordinated as we begin to roll out information about timing, as well as potential size of rate impact, as that's what you guys have been talking about, and we need to make sure that the city and the utility are coordinated on that before anyone assumes too much.
You mind if I sit in on one of those meetings?
Please do.
If any other board member would like to be there, I'm more than happy, but I would like to sit in with both of them and just kind of see where we at and what the differences is and what it's going to take for us to move forward.
That's right.
Okay,
good.
If you don't mind, we could set it up, or we could get our.
Chair Dr. McGee, I just want to make it clear for the folks here and the folks listening that if a sufficient number of trustees are present, that it becomes an open meeting.
No, just one other trustee. Just two.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's highly appropriate for the chair to be present, to represent the board, and of course, the manager
Yes.
and the CFO from.
Yes, just myself and the CEO.
Absolutely. And if it did, we would just post. So.
Yeah, no, I just want to listen and really, this is my first time going through this rate case. I like to learn a little bit more about it. And I like to hear the city perspective side and our side, just to kind of see how we're going on it. Thank you.
But what I'm understanding, Mr. Chair, if any of us want to participate, as long as we rotate, you're open to that?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure. I do have one other question on item number 11. So can you clarify a little bit? I've seen we've had discussion and documentation on the environmental component of it for the Jones property. So if we choose to sell it, what would be the cost associated with environmental cleanup? Or has that been addressed?
We have done quite a bit of the environmental cleanup already. What's happening now is we're having to monitor the water. We've done some work on our side. We're also looking at the relationship between the property line and what the water looks like on SAMA's side. And we're paying for that and monitoring that and working with the TCEQ.
Thank you, Paula.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Gold-Williams. We would take time to move on to item number 5, prorate increase consideration period update. Ms. Paula Gold-Williams.
Okay. Yes, I'm going to turn it over quickly to our leaders. The first part of it is Rudy, again, getting out and having conversations with our community is really important. So Rudy's going to focus on the community engagement work we're doing and as we're in this ramp-up period. And then Corey's going to come back in and just give an update about our drivers and where we are.
Good afternoon, Chair Dr. Mackey, members of the board. Thank you for having me here today. I will try to be as crisp in my presentation as I can. I know we have a long agenda. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about the process of how we connect, listen, and engage with our community as part of any pre-rate increase discussion. You know, I have been here for a previous rate increase when we went through the process in 2013, and one of the primary responsibilities we have as part of this process is to go out in the community and explain what the need is, why it is, and get feedback from the community. And so the listening aspect of the theme of how we engage with our community is probably the most important aspect of this. So today I'm going to share just our general approach to how we intend to engage the community. And I will tell you it is robust. We will meet our members of the community wherever they are, wherever they want us to be. We've got a very, very robust partner engagement program that help us coordinate all this that is led by two of my team members, Melissa Sorolla and Kathy Garcia. And we're going to talk you through our strategy for how we engage today. So again, we're going to discuss the process. I'll talk to you about how we intend to actively listen, walk you through how we keep up with events and the targeted events that we do in the venues that we try to get into. And then this also gives us a really great opportunity to engage in assistance conversations. So those customers who are out there who need help, who we can connect with in anticipation of resuming disconnects, this is a great opportunity to engage in that activity as well. As Paula mentioned in her board report, we always engage our community. It's important to understand every day I've got members of my team, members of the entire CPS Energy family. They're out in the community doing what they do every day. For instance, we have been, since the COVID period has kind of wound down, I know we had a little uptick here recently, but all of last year we really weren't doing grassroots events in the community, and we've begun those again. Since February of this year, we've had close to 600 community events, pop-up events where we coordinate with our council members, with our suburban cities. So we are always out in the community talking to somebody, you know, week in and week out. And that activity will just increase, which Paula has very eloquently suggested. So this is what we do. We look forward to doing more of it. And this fall will be a very, very busy time period for our leadership team here at CPS Energy. This is a very simple diagram that we're honored. We've got a job to do for San Antonio and for Bexar County in serving our customers with the energy that they need and want from CPS Energy. And so our job is to go out in the community and talk about how this request will allow us to continue to do that. So again, across the top really is the what of what we're going to be asking for, and across the bottom really is the where. You know, how do we intend to engage with our customers? You've seen this slide before. It's shown up in Corey's previous presentations. Every time we look at this, the circumstances will change. As we know, there's a very standard process that we work through with our regulator to go and present to City Council various aspects of our overall rate design and the need, what our financial condition is. But there are a lot of other opportunities that we're going to have to engage in the community. The Rate Advisory Committee is doing the work that you've asked of them. The CAC's process is well documented. We know we're going to go to the CAC a couple of times to present to them, and they will decide whether or not they want to formalize a recommendation one way or the other that will show up as a resolution at the end of that process. And again, we will continue to do the community outreach that we do week in and week out. So we have our own milestones of what it takes to get there. and we're committed to engaging every element of the process to make sure that we do it right. So overall, our engagement summary, I mean, this is a very standard, communication slide, the who, what, where, when, and how. At the end of the process, the most important aspect of this slide is to gather the feedback and to present it to our board and ultimately to City Council on what we heard. And we know that we're going to hear information about, what are we doing for affordability? How are we going to help customers, through the disconnect process? What are we doing with respect to the Flexpart Bundle? So there are things that we would expect to hear in the community on a regular basis that we will continue to hear through this process, but we intend to really leave no stone unturned as it relates to all of the ways that we intend to engage our stakeholders. And those are just a few that I'll break out here a little bit more. Again, the Rate Advisory Committee, the Citizens Advisory Committee, they both have formal parts of this process. We had our first, really the kickoff for the Rate Advisory Committee in presenting. We went for close to 3 hours last Thursday, where members of our team presented kind of our financial condition. We talked about elements of how we use money and what our sources of revenue are. And then, we got into an initial conversation about how those costs are allocated to our various rate classes where we earn a return that we, in turn, use to provide our service. But I want to just focus in. The feedback we've gotten from the board members has been that you expect to get input from the RAC and CAC, and we are going to do everything in our power to give them the information they need to be able to weigh in. When you look at all of the methods that we use to connect with our community, we've broken these down really into multiple mediums that we use. But we connect with our community normally through the events that we have for our residential and commercial customers on a regular basis. We use our partners in the community, folks like the real estate council, the chambers, of course, our social services agencies that we use, and we're getting two-way communication with them on a regular basis. Anytime somebody calls us on the phone, comes to see us in our walk-in centers, we gather feedback through surveys and things that we do on a normal basis as well. And then, when we have a particular message to share with the community, we'll go out and we'll share that message and get feedback. Flexpart Bundle is a good example. Mayor, you asked about the last couple of teletown halls. We have been able, Paula mentioned first teletown hall we had here recently, 2,500 folks, signed on. We had close to 800 that stayed on. This last event, we had a little under 2,000 customers who signed on at some point in time and had close to 600 customers who stayed on. So we'll continue to use that medium, but that's just one medium that we will use. We've talked about the need to do an in-person, town hall where folks who might not be able to sign on remotely could come see us. I think the numbers are getting back to the point where we might be able to do that, safely. So we're going to continue the town hall process, but again, that is one element. We always do media partner outreach, and we'll continue to do that. We had a conversation with members of our media at 11 o'clock today, where we talked about our presentation, and we will continue to be proactive in our outreach to our media partners. And then, last but certainly not least is how we educate our employees. Our employees, we've got 3,000 ambassadors who go into the community each and every day where they are, at their homes, at their churches, at their businesses, at their, wherever they're consuming products and services. And we want them to be equipped with the right messaging to ensure that, we're utilizing them as a resource. So everything that we put into the public, our employees will certainly see as well, as part of this process. We were very, as I mentioned, our partner engagement, really our model. We take all of the stakeholders, and we got over 200 stakeholders in the community that will engage on a regular basis, and we break them up into segments. There are community segments, where we go to do pop-up events, our assistance fairs, things of that nature. Our commercial customers, we've got a small business group that reaches out just to small business. We've got our key account managers who deal with the military and our large customers. Of course, our economic development partners, CPS Energy is one of the largest contributors to economic development success in San Antonio. So the work that we do with Greater SATX, the Real Estate Council, folks, of that nature. Of course, our environmental stakeholders. Ms. Belmatis was up here. She's also a member of our RAC. Our outreach to Dee Dee and the tri-chairs, a couple weeks ago was really, to go back to them and talk about the resource plan that we put out. I caught Dee Dee on the way out, and we had a good conversation. But we look forward to continuing to work with our environmental partners on these issues, and then of course our governmental agencies. They have a formal part of our process that we have to certainly be mindful of. This is hard to see, but the point of this slide really is the fact that we are able to pull together reports on where we are. How many presentations have we done with respect to this pre-rate increase discussion with the community? Who haven't we touched? What kind of feedback have we gotten? So we do have systematic ways to keep up with the work that we're doing in the community, and I just wanted to acknowledge that this is no ad hoc process. This is a very formal process that we will utilize to keep up with our efforts in this regard. We've got a full list of activities and upcoming events that are always available to our customers in our community. This list is going to get pretty robust and grow. So if a customer misses, the District 2 Utility Assistance Fair, we want them to see where else they can go with upcoming events to catch us at a different venue where they're going to hear very similar, if not the same information. And so we will continue to build out our list of activities as we go. But I wanted everybody to recognize that if you're interested in finding out what's coming up, that cpsenergy.com/stakeholders is the place to go to find out where we're going to be. As I mentioned, connecting with customers is a great opportunity that we're going to have over the fall to re-engage in the assistance conversations. Of course, we've got income qualified programs that we're very good at connecting people with, but there are other assistance programs that we also try to engage our customers in, that we will continue to do so as we move into this phase of the process. We've also, as part of any rate conversation, we will have a bill estimator so folks can go out there and see exactly what the impact of a potential increase is going to be to their bill. This is out on our website. We will refresh it once we get to the point where we're ready to move forward with discussions about actual rate impact. But we'll be able to help customers through this process as part of our events. And of course, I just want to come back to no customer has to get disconnected. 353-2222 is a number to call to get to us so we can help. And we look forward to helping as many customers over the next few months as we possibly can. I started with this slide, and I'll just come back to this slide again. I am very honored to be a part of this team and a part of this company, and I take very seriously, as do every member of our team, the responsibility we have to our community. I'm looking forward to engaging in this conversation with the community and providing you with the feedback that we hear. With that, I will stop and see if there are any questions.
Do you have any questions or comments at this time?
I do. I know we're gonna, when do we get a presentation by RAC?
Our chair, Reed Williams, didn't feel like we were quite at the point where he's ready to come provide a recommendation yet. But from what we have talked about, I believe that they're working towards providing a report back to the board that will, list out, kind of some detailed observations and any recommendations that they have. And I think once we get to the point where the committee, we've helped the committee draft that up, I believe Chair Williams will be ready to come talk to the board.
Yeah, I think that one of my areas of interest, I went on my third year and I hear one citizen after another citizen, and I hear them loud and clear about inequities and low-income individuals and us putting the burden on them, and for us to be mindful, and that business people at this level can't relate. So one of the questions that I have, and I specifically want that committee to address, would be, have we gotten to the point where we've analyzed and we have a complete breakdown of rate structure? Specifically, what I'm interested in is more the fixed and O&M costs that are associated with solar customers. I want to know, or I want to get a good sense if, part of inequity by people opting out by having solar power, are we also passing more burden to the low-income individual that can't afford solar panels? So I want that committee to provide me some transparency or some feedback in that area. So I'm going to look to that. And so I just want to make sure that I have a good understanding of a breakdown of costs for residential or non-residential who have solar panels or solar technology available, and that would be the same case for commercial. And so as we promote renewable energy sources and solar being top of mind, if I understand correctly, because our focus in meeting environmental needs by not building another plant and investing in solar, we're not adding more costs to citizens by not paying for those upfront costs by having partnerships like OCI, for example. And so if we're going to be creative and we're going to find ways to make significant investments, and especially in solar, I want to just make sure as we continue to support solar initiatives that we're not passing that burden to low-income individuals who, again, are actually going to carry the weight for those that can't afford to get solar panels and invest in solar technology and batteries of that nature.
Vice Chair Gonzalez, I can assure you that the RAC is all over this particular issue. I will tell you, I think there will be one element of what you see from the RAC pertinent to this rate case, and I think there's going to be a longer-term view that the RAC will take as it relates to alternative rate-making structures. They've gotten interested in STEP, so certainly they're going to be doing their own evaluation of STEP and providing feedback back to the board. So,
but I guess at the end of the day, what I want is some transparency and some financial analysis to see what that actually means. I think last month there was a pretty intense conversation about breaking down all the costs on our bills. And so it would be interesting, as a lot of us are saying, we're not here for a handout, people should carry their own weight. It would be interesting just to get a sense as we're making decisions, what exactly does that mean? 1 + 1 = 2. What exactly does that mean? So I want to make sure that I see a full financial analysis as we're making decisions, and I'm looking to RAC to provide that information.
Yes, ma'am.
And then the other thing I would have to say, I'm always encouraging people to leverage assistance, right? And so I recently had someone very close to me who was very concerned about her utility bill. I think it was like almost $300. And so again, I encouraged them to make, again, 78207 person. So I encouraged them to call and make arrangements. And she was already happy that, by the way, the customer service was excellent. She felt that she had an opportunity to express her concern about making payments. She commended the young individual on the other line who was patient, to explain everything, who also took the initiative to find a solution for this person. This person was happy just to get a payment plan 3, and she was going to pay her almost $300 bill. And then that individual on the other line saying, wait, let me see, tell me some more information. And then this individual found out that she qualified for a program where, I guess based on income and age, senior citizens, you can, and I need you to maybe talk a little bit about this. She was able to qualify for a program, I think, for a certain amount of time. She gets a fixed rate on her electricity bill. I'm not sure if that was correct.
Well, any citizen can get an average billing program, so it may have just been that she wasn't on an average bill. I'm on an average billing program. I love it.
But just to give you an example, again, low-income individual was brave enough to took the time to not access to the internet, but took the time to call users or call support system or call centers, got the help. That individual went above and beyond to help the senior citizen, and this individual is so happy to be on this program. So it is a testimonial that we are doing our part, and that even though we get bashed every meeting that we're not doing enough, I would say maybe where we need to be creative is with CBOs and grassroots organizations and do a better job of either going door to door or I don't know, but obviously phone calls work. what we have in place works. We just need to maybe work. I mean, I'm willing to volunteer as a trustee with these CBOs and environmental groups to knock on doors and make sure that they know that there are programs out there that exist. So I just want to commend whoever that individual was on the other line that was able to help out a senior citizen, and the programs that we have in place do work. So thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Steen.
So, Mr. Garza, you reminded me, so you were here 8 years ago
Yes,
when we did the rate increase process. What role did you play then?
I was actually External Relations VP, so I mean, I was responsible for ultimately getting the vote at council, so.
That's great. We've got all that previous experience that you can draw on.
I'm going to give it everything I got, sir. Yes, sir.
It seems like you're doing an incredible job of getting the word out and all this community engagement. Did we do that last time on that level?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
So you're building on that, saying that's what it takes to be successful?
We're building on a baseline. I think we are intending to do much, much more this go-around than we did last time.
And then the other thing, I meant to bring it, but I got my CPS bill, and there was a great flyer in there about contacting us, and you were featured. I thought, am I right? You look like you.
I believe so, yes, sir. That we put out so much of, I'm trying to like go into my files and pick that particular one.
It was about reaching out to CPS Energy on disconnects, and it was on that subject. Am I correct on that? I think that was my most recent bill. Madam CEO, is that correct?
Rudy is fortunate. He's actually been our promo person on both inserts and television and different things.
So I thought that was an excellent piece. And we need to keep getting the word out. We have people in here today talking about it, and I think you made some excellent points. And I like the quote that was enlarged from you. I'm sorry I didn't bring it, but it was very to the point.
Yes, sir.
You don't have to, don't.
Nobody has to get disconnected.
Don't fret about this. Just call us and we'll work with you.
Yes.
We need, and we can't get that word out too much. We got to keep telling people.
Yes, sir. Agreed.
Thank you, Ms. Steen, Mr. Nuremberg. Mayor.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for the presentation, Rudy. Can you get along those lines? Can you give us an update on the disconnect outreach? Give us a sense of how many accounts we've cleared, how many people have signed up for payment plans, things like that.
So, Mayor, I'll tell you, with the businesses that we're starting with, only 40 accounts of our businesses ever got to the point where they were actually disconnected, and we had 2,000 business accounts that were past due, give or take. So, and of those 40, 30 made immediate arrangements. I think there were like 7 of those customers had gone out of business, so they were no longer in business, and 3 may have gotten disconnected. And so when I look at it, I think we've had a huge success in reaching out to our business customers who are going first, and we're continuing that. I don't have the payment plan numbers in front of me, but I will tell you that I'll use Core as an example. We've made 90,000 calls. We've reached 70,000 customers. Close to 63,000 of those customers are on a payment plan. So for the customers we are getting in contact with, almost 90% of those are getting put on affordability, some affordability program that we have to offer. So I feel real good about the outreach that we're doing. We've got to do more, but I think we're on the right track.
Yeah, I mean, if we're triaging the situation, I think this is probably number one.
Yes, sir.
On the list. And so getting those numbers, if I can get a report back, or maybe share with the board on where we are with that whole situation, would be very helpful. Now, how much coordination are you doing with other public agencies? And I'm speaking specifically about the San Antonio Housing Authority and their tenants.
Mayor, they're one of our primary partners. What we're doing when a customer gets to CPS Energy, not only are we looking for utility assistance, we're parlaying any assistance available in the community so that they can get assistance with their water bill, they can get assistance with their rent relief, things of that nature. So, like I said, we work with close to 200 community agencies that all offer assistance of some kind, and the Housing Authority is certainly one of those.
And I don't know if this is a legal issue or what, but to the extent that your teams can work directly with their teams on specific customers, particularly with public housing residents. That's going to be critically important. There's obviously a much different order of magnitude, but our sister agency at SAWS has rolled out their plan, and I'm very complimentary of what they're doing. They're doing some some automatic sign-ups to particular plans. The reason why I'm bringing up the Saha resident is that they can identify those residents who are in arrears right now, who are obviously not able to make a rent payment. We're proactively working with them to get signed up for emergency housing assistance. But the challenge becomes if I'm a family who's struggling through the pandemic, most likely I'm going to pay my rent before I pay anything else. And so they might be behind on or falling behind on their rent, but they may be way behind on their utilities at this point. The challenge is if we disconnect a public housing resident, they are required by law to be evicted based on the HUD requirements. So I think it's going to be important for us to identify particularly extremely vulnerable residents who may be at risk of disconnect, who may be out of communication with us, that we work with them either automatically or in some other way to make sure that they're not disconnected, so they at least have a roof and we can work with them on the rest of that.
Mayor, I will say, I got to give a shout out to Russell Huff on Ben's team. We've been working with Russell to provide these data downloads so that they can overlap us with SAWS and then both utilities with Saha and the other partner agencies across the city. So we're all over what you're asking us to do right now.
Okay. Yeah, I just ask if we can just triple check that, their resident list. On the process, my biggest concern obviously is going to remain coordination with our team over at the city. But in terms of selection and the public engagement process, there's focus groups are mentioned. How are you selecting folks for the actual focus groups? Are you looking for demographic representation? Are we looking for different customer classes? How are you going about selecting folks to give feedback?
Yes, sir. We've actually got focus groups beginning tomorrow and Thursday of this week. We use a company over in the medical center, and we will do seniors, we will do English and Spanish, we'll do different residential demographics. So we will actually do 2 nights, multiple groups each night, and they're broken out into all type of demographic mixes so that we get a real good cross-section of feedback.
Okay. And then final question, just broadly, what kind of, and I got a sense from your slide, but what kind of information are you sharing with all the different presentations, like when you go to the RAC or the CPC or the focus groups? What are you presenting at this point, and what kind of feedback are you looking for from those groups?
The RAC will probably get the most detailed information because, we're responding to the information they're requesting. So they will see capital plans in detail. They will see 5-year projections for O&M, and they'll get to dig into, they've asking a lot of questions about our labor costs, for instance. The CAC, a little bit higher level, but they'll get the revenue, the sources and uses, so that they can see the gap and make their own determinations of whether or not they think what we're asking for is reasonable. That will parlay into a resolution. And then we will have a standard deck that we will use for all presentations that we make into the community. Real Estate Council, we might use, they might want to focus specifically on, show me your growth numbers, so we'll get into that. Social service groups will want to hear about our assistance programs, and so we'll pick a few more slides from that. And so it kind of just depends on who we're speaking to, on what we get a little deeper into, but they will all get a very, standard deck that we'll use to ensure consistency in information. And we'll actually, before we start that process, we'll have a series of internal sessions where, folks will make the presentation and our leaders will get to ask questions and, kind of get to see it presented a couple of different ways, because we want to make sure that we arm them with the right level we want to model what a good presentation looks like, how you handle difficult questions. If you don't know, don't say, don't answer the questions. We'll get back to them. Just those type of things. So we want to present ourselves in a very consistent manner across the community.
Okay. And then what kind of feedback would you be looking for in terms of, is that going to change the way we potentially are going, or tell me what you're hoping to hear.
Yeah, well, what I want to hear is, what I expect to hear is, is just feedback on, maybe they want us to do more, low income programs. I mean, I would expect to hear that. How are you factoring in affordability into this rate case? Every rate case that we've ever done at CPS Energy, I'm actually working on some information that the RAC asked for on this, on how do you deal with affordability as part of every rate case. That's going to absolutely be a conversation. I think our resource plan will be a conversation. How's the community going to get to weigh in on the generation decisions you're making? The RAC has a generation planning committee that we very specifically are going to spend a lot of time with over the coming months, getting into that type of information. Again, that may be a little longer term effort, but I expect folks to give us feedback on our resource plan. I expect folks to give us feedback. It might be a neighborhood association who says, hey, we've got tree trimming problems, that we need you to come address. And so we'll take that information, we'll send it back to our operations folks to make sure we get them on the list. So it's all of that kind of information that we'll have a closed feedback loop. We'll send it where it needs to go, and then we'll get back with the entity who is asking about it so that they know we heard them.
That was what I was looking for, just how we're going to close the loop on feedback. So making sure that, the input that we're receiving is either actionable at the board, or it's going to some aspect of the staff, or, even to the RAC or someplace else that can utilize what they've been given. Okay. Thank you, Rudy. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Garza.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Ms. Gonzalez, go ahead.
I'm going to be looking to RAC, because I think one of my biggest concerns that we're already discussing a rate increase. And I'm not quite sure if we've, again, have had the financial analysis, right, for supporting, if we all truly understand the recovery, fix, operation, and maintenance costs for, again, residential, commercial, those who have solar, those who don't have solar, to even have a discussion. And I'm not quite sure if they've already seen that information, what the recommendations are. I mean, I want to make sure that I truly understand and we have a more thorough breakdown about that. Because at the end of the day, to be equitable, it's important that, again, we understand the fixed and O&M costs that are paying. Everybody needs to pay into that, no matter whether you pay $5 or you pay $300 a month. Everyone should participate in the fixed and O&M portion of it. But everybody wants to know who's doing what. So in order for us to know, I think it's important to have a breakdown of, if you're, again, have solar panels and someone doesn't, who's paying that fixed and O&M cost?
Yes, ma'am. I can reassure you that we have.
And RAC's going to provide that
very
feedback,
passionate.
because we're already having pay increase conversations
The RAC will
without
get
that.
all of that information to be able to weigh in on that appropriately.
Okay.
I want to be, I want to just add one comment about that one. So the RAC is working extremely hard. They have asked for a lot of information, and we've given them a lot of detailed information. Management must give them all the detail that they have. They can't create that detail. We have to create it for them, and they're going to have an opinion, but they won't be creating the detail. Management will take on that responsibility, let them dig into it and ask questions, and then give an opinion. We'll answer as many as we can and take their suggestions. But I don't want to put too much on them because they don't create it, but we're making them swim in a deep pool of data right now.
Appreciate that clarification, whether it's RAC or our team. I
Yes,
want
ma'am.
to see that level of detail.
Will do.
Thank you, Mr. Garza. We appreciate the tremendous job with your presentation and answering all the questions. I think everybody's pleased with your questions.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And Mr. Corey?
Corey is going to go as fast as he can.
We appreciate it, because we got him back
Yes,
on
sir.
time. Thank you. No, thank you.
Super fast. All right, good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, trustees. Rudy did a great job teeing up the communication and feedback loop. Like Rudy, I was here in 2013 and worked intimately on that rate case. And so, Mayor, to your point, I recognize the importance of alignment and discussions. Know the team over there very well and continue to have ongoing conversations with my counterpart over there. So appreciate that. So with that said, let's dive into it. So today I'll be very brief, like Paula alluded to. I'm going to quickly summarize the business drivers and community drivers that we've talked about at length in some of our earlier meetings, and then I'm briefly going to touch on the financial element of this, recognizing, as Paul alluded to, continues to be a preliminary conversation, and there's more refining on those numbers for us to do. The agenda is in alignment with that, so we'll keep it moving. As we begin our community conversation, we're going to take the input that Rudy alluded to in alignment with our value pillars to continue to ensure that we can maintain the financial health of CPS for the benefit of our customers. So we've shown this slide before. I'll take just a few minutes to recap here. As we've talked about before, the complexity of doing our business over the last 8 years since our last rate request has increased significantly. One of the enablers that has allowed us to go this long without one has been the over $900 million in cost savings that we have identified and pulled out of our cost structure since that time. I mention that because I want to give recognition to our workforce that has put forth those efforts and the sacrifices in achieving that. And I know we are in a spirit where, what have you done for me lately? But I do want to acknowledge that our employees for the last 8 to 10 years have really put forward quite an effort. To that end, as we talked about, there are significant changes in terms of growth. We've spoken about that at length. That's required a significant investment in our assets. The key point to note is we've been investing in our community and our assets at today's costs, and the pricing that we have in our rates is 2013 pricing. Kind of compounding that complexity in what we're in our business has been the evolution of technology, and Vivian spoke at length about that, so I won't belabor that point, but we continue to require improvements and upgrades to our underpinning technology that allows us to control and move power across our city in a successful way. And since that last rate request, we've been achieving the service levels with 300 fewer employees than we had 8 years ago. But we cannot cost cut our way to a successful future going forward. What you'll hear from us is the lion's share of our proposed requests and investments will align with resiliency, reliability, investments in technology and security, and investments in our people. So as the weather continues to get more extreme, we'll focus investments that will ensure resiliency of our grid broadly. So those investments, surround items around weatherization. There's some examples of enhanced freeze protection. There are investments that we propose that will improve our load shed capabilities, as we talked about earlier, basically working to reduce customer outage times. There's also proposed investments that will improve our outreach and communication to our customers in a timely fashion, especially in times of emergency. As our community continues to grow and our assets continue to age, what you'll see is that we will have proposed investments that strictly focus on reliability of our system. Specifically, you'll see investment related to pole replacements, investments in new transformers, underground lines, and so forth. These types of improvements and investments in reliability will contribute towards decreased time for connection of customers. It'll help contribute to decreased frequency of outages and a decrease in the duration of outages. And broadly, just the investment in our assets continues to keep our community safe. As our customers' needs constantly evolve, we have significant investment in technology and security. And so you'll hear more about those types of investments. Some examples include investment in a data center that's coming to near end of life. There's a lot of federal security requirements required for those, so you'll see those types of investments. And significant investment, as I mentioned, to the underpinning technology that controls our movement of power and other critical systems. Ultimately, from a customer perspective, you're seeing improvement in our flexibility to serve you, improvement in our reliability and resiliency, and ultimately, hopefully, improved and enhanced customer products and services that we have not offered before. I'll also mention that we've identified investment in our employees, necessitated, in fact, by the growth that we've talked about. But the other compounding item that Lisa spoke about very well at our previous board meeting was that our workforce is experiencing notable change, with about 30% of it eligible to retire in the next year. So, our employees' mission is to serve, and through that mission and through investment in our people, our customers can expect, benefits in customer service, benefits in terms of reduced customer request backlogs, and we're doing all this while offering highly skilled jobs locally here in our community as an opportunity for folks to benefit from who live here. So I mentioned several investments that we've been very thoughtful in in proposing and considering as we go forward in the future. As Paul alluded to, we are at the beginnings of this conversation. I simply put out here our previous estimate that we had showed at earlier meetings. However, rest assured, our teams behind the scenes continue to work that number down as best we can going forward. And when the time comes for us to come forward formally, we'll present a more fine-tuned number. In order to best serve our community in the most affordable way, one of the priorities is ensuring that our shared asset, CPS Energy, continues to remain financially healthy. Now, we all directly benefit from that. Customers specifically enjoy an affordability benefit through our financial health that manifests itself in terms of lowering borrowing costs. As I mentioned earlier, these are just preliminarily illustrative examples that show what our metrics could look like with or without a rate request, given the planned level of investment that I just spoke about. Again, we'll refine these numbers, more to come on this, but the long and short of it is that we believe we can balance prudent investment and financial health, and that they can coexist. And as our financial health continues, we can do more with our dollar, and it can go further for our customers going forward.
Mr. Kuczynski, when
Yes.
we have our meeting, when I meet with you and the city CFO, could we bring that slide and discuss that, please?
Absolutely, yes, sir. Absolutely. And so with that said, I'm going to close actually with the same slide that Rudy mentioned. We haven't formally began yet. We're ramping up that process. Part of the dialogue will be to hear from our community and stakeholders and partner with our city peers. So with that, Chair, I'll wrap up my comments, and hopefully I knocked that out pretty quickly.
You did. Wonderful job. Thank you. Do we have any questions? Mr. Kelly?
Yes, I'm pleased to hear that Chairman Mackey has asked you to drill down on slide 12, because that one slide could cost the company a huge amount of money. With $6 billion of debt, a 1% interest charge or change in our cost of capital to $60 million a year. Not that we would get that much, but you know what could happen with the rating agencies. So I think this chart 12 to me is probably one of the most important that we could possibly have. And I want to link that with a little private survey that I've been doing. I'm hearing, as I talk to people, that the message about the problems we're having with our accounts receivable, the problems we have with the pandemic, the customer assistance programs we're pushing, et cetera, that word seems to be getting out. But the word that's not getting out, at least in my private survey, is all of the stuff we have done to keep our costs down. When I ask people, what do you know about CPS's saving $900 million over the last few years in cost savings? What you talking about? I never heard about that. When we talk about the fact that in 12 years we've had one rate increase, and that was 4.25%. How many businesses can say that? I can't think of any myself. I guess the point is we've got to, as a part of our messaging, I would hope in these community meetings, we make it very well known that this company is doing incredible things to help our customers by keeping our costs down. And that chart that I showed you the other day, where our FTE count has gone that way and our customer count has gone that way, is incredible. That's incredible. Very few companies could say that. But the word's not out. And so I don't know how to get the word out. It's so much easier to get out bad news than it is to get out good news. But this company has a huge, huge amount of good news, but it doesn't get out. And so it's frustrating to me that we can't find a way, and I'm hoping that maybe if we're going to have all of this community meetings over and over and over again. Let's start talking about some of the good stuff this company's doing. And the fact that we're doing our part, yes, I know people are hurting. I know that. I understand that. It's bad. But we're not the problem. We've been part of the solution. But we're perceived as the problem. And that's very frustrating to me. And I'd like for the communication people, who are a lot smarter than I am, to figure out some way to turn this a little bit, that, yeah, guys, I know you got problems, no question. And we're doing everything we can help you. But guess what? Over the 12 years, we have kept your costs absolutely stable. Can you say that about any other vendor that you deal with? Whether it's your grocery store, your gasoline station, whoever. Can they say that? No. And so how do we get the message out that we're part of the solution, not part of the problem?
I appreciate that, Trustee
Kelly.
Kelly.
Any other questions, board? If not, thank you, Corey. We have our next one, and will be number 6. Thank you, Corey. Great job putting us back on time a little bit. Number 6, cost-saving proactive transformers replacement. If Mr. Barnum, you could help us out on that.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Chair Dr. Mackey, Board of Trustees. I just wanted to quickly introduce Lee Bird, who is currently our Director of Distribution Process and Support Services. Lee has been really one of our strongest process improvement leaders in our organization for many years, and he's going to talk about one of the efforts that he was engaged in actually in his previous role when he was Director over Asset Management. And this is one of our assets that's one of our most expensive and impactful assets in our transmission distribution system. So with that, let me turn it over to Lee.
Thank you, Paul. Chair Dr. Mackey, board members. I'm going to talk to you about a program we put in place several years ago. It's still active and it still continues to add value to CPS Energy. We'll talk a bit about the cost savings associated with unexpected equipment failures, and how also we'll discuss briefly how we tied those efforts into our annual replacement planning process. We'll give a little bit, we'll tie it into the guiding pillars. We'll provide some background information. We'll talk about the problem, the challenge that we had in front of us, the solution that we developed, and finally, we'll discuss the results. So from a guiding pillar standpoint, this project that we worked on ties very closely to both reliability and resiliency, ensuring that our customers' lights remain on, and also giving us flexibility to adjust to changing conditions in the system. That's what this really does for us. A bit of background information. The particular asset that we're talking about is a substation asset. It's a transformer. You can see a picture of it on the right-hand side. It's a very large unit. It has a footprint of about 10 feet by 15 feet, and the unit is 12 feet high. So it's a large bedroom size piece of equipment. These assets reside inside the customer substation fence. Each unit serves about 3,500 customers. We have over 250 of these. The average age of our assets right now is just shy of 17 years. And we expect these assets to last 50 years when we put them in the system. And one key item to remember is that the lead time on these pieces of equipment is 12 months. So it does take a long time to get one of these units to our door. So let's talk a bit about the challenge that was in front of us. Back in the early 2000s, as you can see by the graph on the right-hand side, we were experiencing quite a few substation transformer failures. These were unexpected failures. And when we have an unexpected failure like that, we have to respond and immediately replace that unit. For example, one of the units failed in April, and that unit was needed to cover summer peak. So we had a very short window that we have to replace that unit. So When failures like that occur, we have additional overtime costs. We have to divert equipment from existing projects, which not only relates in more costs to install the unit itself, but also delays the planned projects from getting implemented. And so those failures that we were seeing prompted us to look for a solution. But before we go to the solution, I want to take a quick look at the financial implication of a failure as well. The bar on the left shows the cost of replacing a unit when we have an unexpected failure. And the bar on the right shows the same project executed in a planned fashion. So there's no doubt about it, when we react, when we have to resolve an unplanned failure, it is more expensive. And as Paula mentioned earlier, the cost adder is about $300,000. So let's talk about the solution that we put in place. We partnered with EPRI, which is the Electric Power Research Institute, to get the latest and greatest on what was available from an industry standpoint. We also benchmarked other utilities, and we benchmarked our internal departments to see what they were doing. And I'd like to give a shout out to our generation brothers and sisters. They were instrumental in giving us guidance in terms of the way that they care for their equipment. There was a lot of techniques that we could port right over to the distribution side of the business. And we formed a cross-functional team, and we developed a multi-factor algorithm to determine the health of the unit. So in years past, we may have changed it out based on the age of the equipment, and we were now able to determine the risk of failure, and we use that risk to rank the units in priority from worst to best. And then that prioritized list became our punch list for replacement. And it's also part of our now long-range planning equipment replacement process. So let's talk about the results that we realized. The two slides on the two graphs on the right-hand slide, or right of the slide, really tell the story. When we implemented the program in 2009, we were able to take the failure rate from 1.6 failures per year to 0.5 failures per year. In the graph on the bottom, showing the accumulated savings over time, we've saved over $5.7 million since we implemented the program, and we expect those savings to continue to accumulate. But we're not just sitting still. We've done some additional things since we implemented the program. We've implemented the oil inside the transformer is very critical to the health of it, and we've implemented an online oil monitoring so we get near real-time picture of the health of that unit. In our fleet, we have two main groups of assets, and we have a spare unit now for each group. And we continue to refine the algorithm. So we've done a lot to improve that. So this is just one example of how we continually improve our internal processes, and we focus on adding value to our customers as we make the system more reliable. That concludes my presentation. At this time, I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
One quick one, and this may be more topic for the T&I committee. But what about when you're capturing that data from that algorithm, who is doing the chain of custody of that information?
That information is captured, resides in our systems of record.
Right, but who is, from the moment that I capture that, wow, things are great, who is in between making sure that the receiver, that initial capture of the system is healthy is actually really healthy?
Yes. That is our...
From the moment that I press capture to submit to end goal.
The asset management team actually is...
So right now we're handling that internally, the change of custody.
That is correct. It is an
Thank
internal engineering department.
Okay.
All right. You're welcome. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Dr. Mackey and trustees. My name is Darrell Clifton. I'll be giving you a procurement preview on our underground infrastructure installation services. And this will be on the consent agenda for y'all's approval. Today's objectives and takeaways, I'll provide an overview of the underground infrastructure work that we do, and how it relates to our contractors. And then again, seek approval on the consent agenda. Today's agenda will talk about how this contract aligns with the guiding pillars. We'll talk about the contract scope and the use of contract construction firms. And then again, request approval on the consent agenda. When we look at the guiding pillars, our construction contracts align with 3 of those pillars. First is reliability, second is safety, and the third is resiliency, while supporting customer growth. Really, when we put underground in instead of overhead, it really improves our reliability. For the underground construction scope of these contracts, I just want you to kind of focus on the primary jobs that we do. These are large, complex system growth and system upgrade projects. They're also customer growth projects and projects that improve our reliability to our distribution system. When we look at the more, a little bit lower at the types of projects, just to give you an example, the first bullet up there is large underground systems at substation exits. This is the underground system within our substations that takes the power from the transformers that Lee just mentioned out to our overhead distribution system. Another type of project will be when we convert existing overhead lines to underground in order to improve reliability. The third type is pictured in the picture on the slide, are complex utility adjustments for civic improvement projects. So what are some of the benefits of using contractors? The main benefit is they provide additional resources to augment our internal construction staff when needed. And also by using multiple construction firms, it gives us the flexibility to maintain our construction as the need for construction rises. This procurement went through the request for proposals. With the RFP process, we'll focus on the first 2 bullets and the last one. This RFP process allows us to award points to local and diverse businesses. We also focus on trying to grow a qualified and diverse vendor pool. And I'll mention that again on a upcoming slide. And also want to let you know that when we use an RFP, we're able to put subcontracting goals for local and diverse companies if the prime is not a small or diverse company. On this slide here, I just kind of want to draw your attention to, we're seeing a great need for underground infrastructure. We're projecting our contract spend to triple over the next 3 years. This is really due to customer growth as well as our strategy to start undergrounding some of our overhead circuits, which is going to improve reliability in the future. This is on the consent agenda. The little stats is we did receive 8 proposals. We are recommending 3 of the firms to be awarded the contract. All 3 are local. 2 are small, diverse firm category, and the one non-diverse firm is committed to subcontracting 20% to small and diverse firms. Overall, this is a $72 million contract for a 3-year term. These are the 3 recommended companies. I want to draw your attention to the Bartek Construction Company up on top. This company here used to be a subcontractor with our prime contractors, and they have earned the opportunity to now become a prime. They are a local small company. We're also going to be dividing this work up evenly between all 3 contractors. With that, we are requesting approval as part of the consent agenda for award of contracts to the 3 companies listed for the contract construction services in the amount of $72 million over 3 years. That concludes my presentation, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Can you turn on?
I am reviewing this. I am very confused about something. The procurement and the contractors, some of them fine. But one of these contractors I watched in my neighborhood, and when they did underground through my property, I went out there and I asked them, please do not disturb my irrigation system or fix it. They ignored me. I went out there again. I asked them the second time. I went out there again the 3rd day and told them that the 3rd day they destroyed my irrigation system. 10 places. It cost me $280 to replace that myself. The competency of this group, I will not support because no, I saw it first. I witnessed it firsthand that it happened. And I asked 3 times about this right here, please, and it cost me. Yes, one of the guys showed up after the fact and said, can we get the receipt and pay it? I say, no, I'm on the board and I cannot allow you to pay for anything for me. But they destroyed it. 10 sprinkler heads, 10, not system. But I asked, nice, 3 times, please, replace it and fix it correctly. Until I know someone has visited and what we've done about this, as one individual, I do not have the, I'm just confused about this company coming up. And I've called CPS about it twice. My concern on this item, on this company. So I just want to leave that out when it comes to the next point. Thank you.
When we got that information, we did call the contractor and talk to them about the substandard work done at your location and the expectation that you conveyed, which is correct. No customer should have had that issue. And we have talked about a higher standard of reviewing their work, and they have made commitments to us about their improvement. So we know exactly what vendor you're talking about, and we have restated our expectation because of the direct experience that you were able to share with us.
Any other questions, board members? Yes, Mayor?
So I'm on a few boards that I'm asked to approve procurement contracts, and all of them do it slightly different. What would be helpful either in your presentation or on backup is seeing a scorecard and what we're evaluating the companies on. I don't get that from the presentation, particularly as it relates to small women, diverse local firms, things like that. I would still like to get a better sense of where are we weighting those scores, things like that, before we get too far down the line. But again, I appreciate the presentation. I just need a little bit more backup on that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Clifton.
Thank you.
Super job, and thank you for everything. At this time,
is there some way, Paula, that we could have a sample follow-up questionnaire to homeowners that we could get the impact, particularly of this type of work or this particular contractor. I don't know any of the details on it, but I think Dr. Mackey has a point that if it's happened to him, it could be happening to others. And I'm just wondering if, when you have a similar project, that we could then have an after completion survey and go out and talk to some of the people that were impacted and ask them, what was your thoughts about this? I'm concerned about what Dr. Mackey said. On the other hand, I can't see us holding up a $72 million contract that has to go forward, to get this work done. But on the other hand, I don't think we should sweep that under the rug. So I'm asking myself, is there some way that we could have an after-job survey to see if we're in effect addressing these types of things? You said you got commitments from the contractor. Is there some way now that we can backtrack over the next few jobs to see if that commitment's really taking place?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll do a closed loop on this particular vendor and any vendor that we have a issue like this.
But to be clear, I think not too long ago, I was presented with a proposed vendor rating survey that we're going to be doing from now on. Is that still in play? I know that not too long ago, there was something that was being presented.
At the last meeting, our CAO did a proposal for you all to contemplate. She wants to spend some more time with all of the board members, but I know, Vice Chair, you've been trying to help us kind of think this through. So we have a framework proposed about how do we look at our scoring system, and particularly relative to diverse vendors. So we're working on that as we speak.
But I think it was a little bit more that I think what we're working on in the immediate future is just in general to have a scorecard for all vendors, larger, smaller, diverse or not. And then I think what I'm hearing from my fellow trustees, if there's an additional, maybe random surveys on work being performed, because oftentimes what happens, a fairly large organization will sub and sub and sub and sub for cost. And so that big prime may not be aware that through the subbing process, the quality may not be there, right? But at the end of the day, that large prime is still responsible for that quality of the work. But I do sincerely appreciate the initiatives that were outlined in here for diversification, debundling, as well as considering someone who's sub to prime. So I think that we've come a long way. So I again want to thank all of you. And just to let my fellow trustees know that it is a work in progress. It is a work in progress to improve. Again, we're working on the framework to ensure that all vendors are rated. There's some kind of, again, follow-up surveys to ensure that the work is being done up to par, especially for the dollar amounts, large or small. We should be doing that across the board. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
If I just may, and I look forward to that. My only ask is that we have some way of distilling all that information when it comes time to take the vote. Because I would assume that if we're doing a proper evaluation, we're taking in comments like that from across the spectrum of customer experience. It just, whatever company this is got lucky and they did it at the chairman's residence. And I hope that we get a broad perspective of quality of work, regardless of the tool that we're using. But I just would like to have some kind of distillation of that information on the board backup documents when we do major procurements.
Yeah, we do have a contractor scorecard for every contractor that we do business with, and it takes into account safety, customer complaints, a lot of things like that, and they have to maintain an acceptable level to even be one of our suppliers.
And we'll work on a way to get something at the board level so you can see what we're doing.
That reflection of that work was on CPS, not on that company, because they were doing it for CPS.
I understand
that makes us look bad.
Yeah.
See things like that. So, but great job in presentation. I'm sure we're going to come up with some solutions on reviewing this. And thank you for the presentation. At this time, Ms. Ramirez, would you please take us into closed session, executive session?
Yes, sir. At this time, the board is going to recess into executive session to discuss matters that have been duly posted under several provisions of Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code, including consultation concerning attorney-client matters under Section 551.071, deliberations and other authorization on real property under Section 551.072, prospective gifts or donations under Section 551.073, personnel matters under Section 551.074, security personnel or devices under Section 551.076, to deliberate regarding security audits and devices under Section 551.089, to deliberate under Texas Government Code, Section 418.183, subsection F, about confidential information under the Texas Homeland Security Act, economic development negotiations under Section 551.076, and to deliberate, vote, or take final action on competitive matters under Section 551.086. At the conclusion of executive session, the board will reconvene in open session and continue its meeting. It is 3:19 as we break for executive session.
At this time, Ms. Ramirez, would you please bring us back into regular meeting, please?
Yes, sir. It is 5:04 PM and the board has concluded executive session. I can confirm that there were no votes taken and no matters were discussed that were not part of the posted agenda. We do have a quorum. All members are present.
Thank you, Ms. Ramirez. If we could go to item number 9, consent agenda. Approval of consent items, payment to the City of San Antonio for August 2021, appointment to the Rate Advisory Committee, RAC, from District 3, procurement items, general services, underground infrastructure, installation services. Do we have a motion?
Dr. Mackey, based on your earlier comments, did you want to pull one of those items out of the consent?
No. They said they were going to take care of it.
All right, so I'll make the motion on the consent item.
Okay, motion by Mr. Steen, and second by Mr. Kelly. Do we have any questions or comments? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motions carry. We have regular agenda, item number 10, committee report, Operation Oversight Committee meeting held on 8/17/2021. OOC Alignment Risk Subcommittee meeting held on 8/17. Nomination Committee meeting held on 8/26. Technology and Resilience Committee meeting held on 8/26. TNR Aligned Risk Subcommittee meeting held on 8/26. Master Planning Oversight Committee meeting held on 8/30/2021. Nomination Committee meeting held on 9/8/2021. If all committee chairs would like for that to be read in the minutes, put in the minutes, that we could have that motion as discussed. Any move?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, none opposed. Okay, we could look at item number 11. It says Jones Avenue property use, and this is up for discussion and possible vote. Mr. Kurt Brockman?
Kurt Brockman, yes, sir. All right, good afternoon, Chair Dr. Mackey and Board of Trustees. The objectives and takeaways is I'll provide a brief review of the Jones Avenue property, kind of how it's been used historically and the layout of the property. And then I'll seek request direction and a vote from y'all on how we should proceed with the disposition of the property. The agenda follows the takeaways and objectives. Like everything we do here at CPS Energy, we align our property use with our guiding pillars. When we acquire property, we go through a vetting process to take into account all these factors and on how the property will be used. Similarly, when we sell a piece of property, we use a similar process to ensure that the sale of the property is no longer needed for reliability or resiliency purposes, that the property is safe, and that the property meets the environmental standards. But also that the sale of the property benefits our customers and our community. Just real quickly, we've owned the Jones Avenue property for nearly 100 years. It's about 7 acres. It's located about 4 blocks north of where we are right now on the San Antonio River. The property supported several of our functions over that nearly 100 years: distribution, system protection, and just general, electric operations. Before we began phasing them out in 2014. And then on March 2015, this board declared the property surplus. When the board declared it surplus, it also directed the CEO at the time to divide the 7-acre property in half, convey 1/2 of that, which we call South Jones, to the San Antonio Museum of Art with the appropriate restrictions for its use, and then market and sell the remaining north half, the other 3.5 acres, to go ahead and put it on the market and sell it. if you take a look at the photo on this slide, in the upper right-hand side, you will see I-35 is bounded on the east by the San Antonio River. And then if you notice the blue line that kind of zigzags from the upper left to the lower right, that is the dividing line between Jones North and Jones South. The Jones South contains what used to be the old administration building. It was originally built in like 1920s, added on piecemeal since then. It's about 80,000 or so, 85,000 square feet. Also, to support our environmental stewardship pillar, we performed a lot of work getting this property ready for conveyance. So we removed an emergency communications tower in the summer of 2018, and then we also cleaned the soil on the entire 7 acres, but we also continue to monitor shallow groundwater in the area and also address some potential impacts on off-site properties in the area. Ultimately, we were unable to complete the final property transfer with SAMA before the agreement expired at the end of 2019. And considering that a lot has changed, a lot has changed since 2015, including our financial, landscape and our community priorities, we are requesting your direction on how to deliver the best value for our customers and our community. So at this time, we request board direction to either resume the transfer negotiations of the property to SAMA for the benefit of the community, arts, and education, or market and sell the combined 7 acres for the financial benefit of all customers, especially those who need payment or support, or what any other motion that y'all deem is necessary.
Thank you.
And that is all I have.
At this time, I would like to make a motion to move to authorize the CEO to explore all marketing options for the sale of the entire property with continued discussion with the SELMA on the highest and best use of the property, 6.94 acres, located at 326 West Jones Avenue. Okay, there's a motion. Do we have a second? Second by Mr. Kelly. Do we have any questions or comments?
Dr. Mackey, could you explain your motion in terms of where this leaves SAMA?
To explain it, just authorizing the CEO to explore all marketing options and have further discussion, continued discussion with SAMA on the highest and best use of the property.
But I think it's ambiguous about what we're doing with SAMA based on this arrangement we've had with them since 2015.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Mr. Steen. Any other questions or comments?
But I think we need to clear that up before we vote on the motion. I think it's.
Steen, could you present your question again? I'm not sure I heard that.
Mr. Kelly, what I'm trying to understand is that we have this, for lack of a better word, deal that we made with SAMA back in 2015, and he's presented a motion, and it's not clear what we're doing in terms of our relationship with SAMA. Is it just that we're now in essence cutting SAMA out of this, but we're saying because you're a neighbor, we'll continue to discuss this with you?
My understanding, or the way I interpret this, is that we're instructing the CEO to continue discussions with SAMA around the highest and best use of the property. And highest and best use is a very broad term in the appraisal world that encompasses a study of various and sundry uses which maximizes the value of the property. And so, to me, this is asking the CEO to negotiate with SAMA on what we can do together to maximize the highest and best use of the property. So I don't see it, from my perspective, as instructing the CEO to do anything in particular. It's instructing the CEO to have the flexibility to look at all of the issues that would be encompassed in the highest and best use of the property. And I don't know what all that may involve, but I trust the CEO in her judgment to discuss that in such a way that we come to the right conclusion.
But in talking, bringing in SAMA to these discussions, are they just being brought in as the neighbor so that we're giving due consideration to what the owner of the neighboring property thinks? Or are we recognizing that SAMA still has an interest in this property?
Both.
From my perspective, I'd say all of the above.
Correct.
John, this has been a very complicated property for a long period of time. And there are many, many different issues that need to be resolved. And I think that all of the things that you just listed are going to be encompassed in these discussions.
All right, I think it's good that we're talking about this, because I think the motion standing alone is somewhat ambiguous. We were given a pretty stark choice in terms of what the staff presented us, and either resume transfer negotiations with SAMA for the benefit, whatever, or market and sell the combined 6.94 acres, meaning that we would cut SAMA out.
Well, again, my understanding, and I suspect each one of us have our own understanding because it is a complicated issue, is that we're combining both of those, that we are looking at the possibility of marketing the entire site, as he said, but also continuing our negotiations and discussions with SAMA as to the highest and best use of the property. So I see it encompassing
both
elements of both of those requirements rather than any one.
All right, so as long as that's the understanding that we have, that's behind the motion, I could perhaps support that. But if what we were saying today is that we're, in essence, cutting SAMA out, I can't support that.
I personally don't see us cutting SAMA out.
Madam CEO, you're going to be doing the negotiation. How do you understand that motion?
I think all you've instructed me to do is to go explore.
Okay, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, let me just remind everybody, this is public property because it is in the CPS portfolio. CPS retains the ownership of 6.94 acres. So my reading and my interpretation of the motion is to authorize the CEO to enter discussions with them to come to a resolution to this. We need closure with it. And ultimately, if no resolution can be found with SAMA, then we are authorizing the CEO to market the property. But it is our hope that there is a mutually agreeable solution to that.
And that you asked that I be involved in a discussion.
That's right. And your presence, Chairman, is very helpful.
Correct.
And I would agree with what the way the mayor described that.
Yes. Any other discussion? If not, we have a motion by, who made the motion? I made the motion, Mr. Kelly Suckin, and we have to do a roll call on this? Vote, roll call. Yes, vote.
If we're doing a roll call, Trustee Steen?
Yeah, I'm puzzled by this. I'm still puzzled by the motion because you're saying you're going to use best efforts to figure out something with SAMA, but then if that's not fruitful, then on your own you can just walk away from that and market the full acreage?
I will come back to the board like I do with all property. I think you all gave me instructions several years ago that as I'm making major decisions that I come back and share that with you. So I will do that.
Okay, well, I feel strongly that, and even though I have the utmost confidence in the legal team and the position they're taking, I cannot in good conscience vote to renege on the deal that CPS Energy made in 2015 to convey the 3.47 acres to SAMA. That's my position. I think I'll vote, because I'm still not clear despite all this discussion. I think I'll vote no on it. I'm sorry to be so
No.
wordy about it, but that's where I come
Okay,
down.
thank you.
Vice Chair Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mayor Nuremberg?
Yes.
Trustee Kelly? Chair Dr. Mackey?
Yes. Motion carries.
Yes, sir.
That's 4 yes and 1 no.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If we could, thank you, Mr. Brockman. Great. If we could move on to item number 12, appointment to the Citizens Advisory Committee. Mr. Garza?
Yes, sir. It is our custom when we have a leader who comes before the board for the first time for their chief to introduce them. Today, I'm here to introduce Ms. Julia Carrillo Haynes. She is our manager of local government relations. She comes to us earlier this year. She joined CPS Energy team, and we're glad to have her. She came to us from the Edwards Aquifer Authority, and she was with Sarah before that, and we're pleased to have her. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Julia Carrillo Haynes, who is going to introduce Mr. Tom Corser as the nominee for my councilman's District 9 appointment to the CAC.
Thank you, Rudy. Hello again, Chair Mackey and trustees. I realize I am the last person on the agenda, so I will be quick. Thank you for the opportunity to present this item. Before you today is the consideration of the appointment to the Citizens Advisory Committee, or CAC, for District 9. A couple of objectives for today's presentation will be to, one, review our existing membership, which is composed of both appointed members by the council as well as at-large members. Then I will present the District 9 appointment and request confirmation of his approval. Specifically, I will cover the process by which members are appointed to the CAC. I will review our current membership. I'll go over some recent appointments as well as expiring terms. And again, finally, introduce Mr. Corser and request his approval to the CAC. All of our CAC members may serve a maximum of 6 years, consisting of 3 consecutive 2-year terms. This 15-member committee is made up of 10 individuals appointed by each of the 10 council members and 5 at-large individuals, 5 individuals to serve in the at-large positions who are nominated by the community and then interviewed by the CAC. And all CAC members are approved by the CPS Energy Board of Trustees. This graphic displays the 10 City Council appointees by district, including the District 9 nominee pending today's approval, highlighted for you in orange. You will notice that we currently have 2 vacancies in Districts 1 and 2. The government relations team has been engaged with these council offices regarding replacements and will return to this body for any approval once their selection is confirmed. This slide depicts our 5 at-large members, and you will notice 2 of which serve on the CAC's executive committee as chair and vice chair. We have Luisa Casso and Bill Day. Now, despite the challenges associated with COVID-19, we had several appointments to the CAC in 2020. I won't go through all of these here, but you'll see we did have 5 in 2020, and then we have Mr. Corser today for District 9 for 2021. And I just wanted to bring this to your attention. We do have some expired and upcoming expiring terms. Andy Castillo, you'll see, is in District 5. His term actually expired in February of this year. So at that time, along with Districts 1 and 2, we decided to wait until the City Council elections occurred to reach out to those respective offices. Now, Andy has graciously agreed to stay on the CAC until his replacement is appointed by Councilwoman Castillo. And you'll notice Andy also serves on our Rate Advisory Committee, so we are very grateful for his continued engagement. As we start 2022, we will have 2 of our at-large members' terms expire, David Walter in January and Chair Luisa Casso in February. And as I mentioned, the government relations team will return to this body regularly with updates on any new candidates. And now to introduce the District 9 appointee from Councilman John Courage. Mr. Corser is recently retired from a long career in the technology industry. He has lived in San Antonio for 4 years after relocating from New Jersey, where he was active in many civic and township boards and commissions. And Mr. Corser is here today. So with that, again, this appointment comes from District 9 Councilman John Courage. And Mr. Corser is here if you have any questions or would like to hear anything from him. But I conclude my presentation and I'm available for any questions.
Yes, like from the, come up, yes, please.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the introduction. I recently relocated, as she mentioned, from New Jersey. I spent about 35 years in the technology industry, and I've lived here about 3.5, 4 years. I currently reside in District 2 of your district. Councilman Courage was brave enough to nominate me to serve on the CAC, so I'm flattered to do that. I look forward to working with you and providing that bi-directional feedback between the CAC, the District 9 and yourself at CPS. So any questions, I'm happy to
Welcome above. We have any questions?
I do. Just again, thank you for choosing to serve. As you know, Saito is pretty serving. It can be complicated, but I am looking forward to working with you in some capacity. As you know, a good amount of where we're spending money will be in technology. So as one fellow technologist to another, I'm looking forward to collaborating with you and looking to you for advice and how we move forward. So
Sure.
Welcome aboard. Thank you for your service.
Thank you so much.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I move.
Move to approve the Citizen Advisory Committee, CAC for District 9. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Mr. Kershaw. We have a second by the mayor. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Hey, and thank you and welcome aboard.
Thank you, Doctor.
And look forward to working with you. Okay, we have the next item on the agenda. We have a motion to adjourn. We have a motion? I'll make the motion to adjourn. Do we have a second? Second by Mr. Kelly. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.